Hi, my name is Jesse. You can call me Jesse. Last Saturday marked the first week of the new Life series, Wildlife. If you clicked on this video and don't know what the Life series is, let me quickly explain. I'll try to be fast here because this explanation of rules is like a whole paragraph in my script. If you want clarification, I'll put all the known rules in the description of this video. The Life series is a group of Minecraft YouTubers who have a limited amount of lives to live. They are peaceful for the first part of the series, mostly, but when they get onto their last life, they're allowed to kill. This is the 6th season, and with it comes new rules. This time, everyone has 6 lives. If you have 4+ lives, you're dark green. If you have 3 lives, you're lime green. If you have 2 lives, you're yellow, and allowed to kill dark greens. And if you're on your last life, you're red, and allowed to kill anyone. This time, if a yellow player or a red player kills a dark green player, they will steal their life. The special thing about this season is that every single week a wild card is drawn, and a wacky new thing happens. Every week before the next set of episodes will come out, I will be recapping everything that happened in the previous week, until the series is complete. So if you're busy and can't watch everyone's perspective, you can at least know what's going on the server for the next week. As expected, obviously there will be spoilers. Oh my gosh, the recap talking about all the events of the series spoiled all the events of the series! I urge you to watch at least a few perspectives before watching a recap of everything. Enough explaining rules, what happened last week? Now, I mentioned the wild cards. This week's wild card was the fact that if you hold shift, you shrunk, and if you press space, you grew. I believe Big B was the first to discover the wild card. I mean, he was literally crouching in third person when the wild card was drawn. You don't get much more faster than instant. This wildcard led to a lot of shenanigans, including the forming of an entire team. Sub 1 Club is made up of Green Mumbo and Skizzleman. This paranoid platoon got together under the rule that they must stay as little as possible the entire episode. They burrowed into the mountain and called it their home. This group spent a lot of time mining for various resources such as iron and diamond, and made one of the enchantment tables on the server. I called them paranoid earlier, and that was for good reason. For some reason, these little fellows were so on edge the entire session, mainly Mumbo. Scar was digging out of the cave? Suspicious. He's after the enchantment table. Green going off alone? He's abandoning us. Martin standing on the enchantment table? He's stealing it. I'm not sure why they were so on edge, but it does make me feel like this team is one of the more unstable ones. It will be interesting to watch them as the series continues. Another group that stuck together very early on was B-Dubs, Gemini Tay, and Dominic Toretto, formerly known as Smallish Beans. Now, B-Dubs quickly abandoned this group to go on his own little horse soap opera arc, and we'll get to that, but for now, let's talk about the other two. As I alluded to, Joel has decided it's getting fast and even perhaps furious this season, and is referencing the popular movie franchise The Fast and Furious. His reasoning is that he wants to form some stronger bonds this time around, and The Fast and Furious is all about family, so I guess we'll see where that goes. These two went mining and eventually got cows and sugarcane, and another one of the enchantment tables on the server. Joel also showed off some of the Wildlife brand leg by mining some obsidian.
Mining it, which is now. Okay, now it stays there for 30 seconds, and we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 20, 21, 22, 23, 40,
Guys, if I have to live with him, you have to engage him here, okay? Just
Ironically, this was not fast, nor furious. Well, maybe a little furious. Green has addressed the lag and said that it'll be more optimized next week, so that's something to look forward to. Two last things to mention about Joel and Gem is that they have some of the only creaking hearts on the server, as well as the fact that they're allied with Scar, Jimmy, and Lizzie. This is another team that formed very early on, however, Lizzie was not part of it until very late in the session. They have claimed the big Cherry Blossom Mountain as their own. And just like every other team I have and will mention, they spent a considerable amount of time this session mining. Except for Jimmy, he did not spend a considerable amount of time in this session mining. I should also point out that Scar did great in the mines and got lots of diamonds for the team. Oh, wait, he just made himself diamond armor. Honestly, good on him. He seems like he needs it, as he was one of the few members to die this session. Scar specifically had a pretty bad session. For one, he obviously lost a life due to fall damage, but also he experienced a lot of impertinent and discourteous behavior. Obviously, we mentioned how he was wrongfully accused of attempted theft, but also his and Jimmy's sheep were stolen by Red and Martin. Additionally, he was bondoogled by Etho, Tango, and B-Dubs in the mines because of his sharp eye.
Dude, I'm teamed up with a bunch of blind moles here or something. What is this? You walked by that 4 times?
Because of this, Scar decided to make a reputation board with most of the people on it having a bad reputation. This is of course except Joel and Gem, as Joel was actually nice to Scar, giving him bones for a dog, and Scar even gave him a diamond in return. Meanwhile, the rest of his team joined a D&D party and camped out in the Pale Garden with the man who just stole their sheep, and Big B. In all, I think this team came out of the session on pretty good standing. I'm very excited to see where things go, especially as none of these members have ever teamed together before. I mentioned them a couple times before, so let's talk about them some more. Etho, Tango, and B-Dubs settled on the peninsula just in front of the Sub 1 clubhouse. As I alluded to before, Etho and B-Dubs engaged in a very dramatic and heart-wrenching horse soap opera. This ended in B-dubs getting some Lapis, and Etho being the one with the horse this season. They promptly abandoned these horses for the mines where they encountered Scar, as we talked about earlier. Another large group that got together almost instantly was the team Gaslight, Gatekeep, Girlboss, and Impulse. This team is one to be reckoned with, featuring previous season winners and Impulse. You're never gonna guess what the focus of the episodes of this group were: mining and getting geared up. Eventually, they settled on this island near the Pale Forest next to Bigby, where they promptly got robbed of everything they had by Green and Martin. They initially thought this theft had Gem and Joel to blame, causing some discourse, but eventually they found their own cows. This is the only group besides Gem and Joel that have creaking hearts in their possession. They also have an enchantment table. Next up we have Big B, or should I say Little B. Big B had a relatively simple session. He mined for resources and came up to the surface to eventually settle right on the edge of the Pale Garden inside his own head. The man mainly bounced between groups hanging out. Personally, I think his perspective holds the most variety of the session, so be sure to check it out. Big B was also part of the D&D party along with Jimmy, Lizzie, and Rendog. Speaking of Rendog, he and Martin have teamed up again. They've previously teamed up in the first 2 seasons of the Life series, and for good reason. They work so well together. I'm super excited for this team's future endeavors, especially because they seem to be the most chaotic so far, or at least they have partaken in the most larceny so far. They stole Scar, Jimmy, and Lizzie's sheep, as I mentioned earlier. Martin stole the cows from Scott, Pearl, Cleo, and Impulse with Green, as I mentioned earlier, and Martin even killed one of Gem and Joel's cows. They were also the only group to go to the Nether, although they didn't stay long. In the end, these two settled in the forest right near Gem and Joel Toretto. One last thing I want to mention about this group is that Ren is a great singer. I really like this part, but it also kind of gave me a little existential crisis. You see, I have never listened to House of the Rising Sun, the song that Ren plays with his guitar here, but recently it got onto my playlist and I was listening to it a lot, and I really like the song now, but this is like a recent thing, this last week. But then I watched this episode and bro, it just showed up. House of the Rising Sun. I live in a simulation. This is crazy. So yeah, that was a little existential crisis I had while watching Ren's episode, but it was good singing nonetheless. In the end, we had 2 deaths, a lot of teams, a lot of fun, and a lot of resource gathering. If you want to stay up to date with all the events of Wildlife, subscribe and turn on notifications, as I will continue to recap every single week until the group finishes the series. Thanks for watching.